Edgar Cayce found that when a soul hits its ultimate breaking point, something remarkable unfolds in the spiritual dimension. In 1931, he informed a distressed mother, whose child was near death, that her daughter's soul was, in fact, deciding whether to remain or go back to the spiritual realm. Astoundingly, 3 days later, the child experienced a miraculous recovery that astonished the doctors. However, what's even more surprising about this situation is that the sleeping prophet disclosed that our most challenging experiences are not forms of punishment. Instead, they present cosmic chances for the soul to achieve significant leaps in consciousness. Take a moment to consider this. Every instance of despair you've ever experienced could have been a stepping stone towards something extraordinary. In this video, I will share insights drawn from Cayce's recorded readings. You will learn about the 3 spiritual principles that come into play during crises, the reasons why some individuals embrace suffering as a route to enlightenment, and the particular method Cayce provided for linking with your higher self during the toughest times in life. If this speaks to you, be sure to subscribe and activate the notification bell, as this information has the potential to change your perspective on every challenge you face. Allow me to transport you to Virginia Beach during the 1930s. Edgar Cayce is reclined on his couch, slipping into the renowned trance that would establish him as the most extensively recorded psychic in American history. The stenographer is prepared. The anxious seeker awaits, and what emerges from Cayce's mouth that day would alter everything we believed about human anguish. The session was for a man who had lost it all. His enterprise had failed. His spouse had departed, and he was pondering the idea of ending his existence. However, rather than providing superficial solace, Cayce disclosed something that stunned everyone present. He claimed that the man's soul had deliberately chosen this lifetime, aware that these precise hardships would arise, not as retribution, but as a means for advancement. This is where it becomes truly astounding. Cayce further clarified that souls in the spiritual realm willingly opt for the most challenging earthly experiences because they facilitate the quickest path to spiritual development. It's akin to selecting an advanced class rather than starting with the basics. However, there's an even deeper insight into this phenomenon. Cayce unearthed that in our most challenging moments, the barrier between different dimensions tends to weaken. Through numerous documented instances, he demonstrated that times of crisis create openings to elevated states of consciousness that remain unreachable during easier periods. Consider it in this way. Your spirit resembles a diamond, with life's challenges shaping its dazzling facets. Absent these pressures, you would merely exist as a chunk of carbon. In one of his most well-documented instances, Cayce provided readings for a woman who had been confined to her bed for 7 years due to an unexplained ailment. The medical professionals had lost hope, but Cayce accessed the Akashic records, that universal archive where each soul's path is chronicled. He disclosed that her condition was not a coincidence. Her spirit had selected this journey to cultivate compassion and to uncover healing skills she had not realized she had. However, there was one requirement. She needed to shift her perspective from viewing herself as a victim to recognizing herself as a spiritual seeker. Within 6 months of adhering to Cayce's advice, she not only healed, but also transformed into a healer, assisting countless individuals over the subsequent 30 years. This alters our entire perspective on suffering, doesn't it? However, Cayce uncovered something quite unsettling in one of his readings. Certain individuals become so enmeshed in their pain that they hinder the growth it was intended to foster. They remain trapped in a victim mentality instead of acknowledging their inner spiritual strength. Cayce referred to this as the significant spiritual entrapment and offered particular methods for liberating oneself from it. The initial technique is referred to as soul recognition. Rather than questioning why this is occurring to you, you inquire about what lessons your soul is meant to learn from this situation. This simple change in viewpoint engages what Cayce referred to as the inner teacher. The second technique pertains to what Cayce learned regarding prayer in times of crisis. Conventional prayer seeks change, whereas soul-level prayer seeks comprehension and the fortitude to evolve through the experience. Cayce recorded numerous instances where this particular form of prayer resulted in extraordinary breakthroughs. However, the third method holds the greatest power. I'll disclose that shortly. First, let me share a story that deeply frightened even Cayce's assistant. A young man sought a reading following a life-altering accident that left him unable to move. The physicians declared that he would never regain the ability to walk. His family braced themselves for a future filled with caregiving. But when Cayce entered his trance, he began to articulate something surprising. He perceived the man's accident not as a misfortune, but as a form of spiritual intervention. The young man's soul had been on a harmful trajectory during his earlier spiritual reading. This incident, in fact, represented a corrective measure selected at the soul's essence. Even more astonishing, Cayce disclosed that the individual possessed the power to fully heal himself, but only if he grasped the spiritual lesson within his struggle. Here's how the story unfolded. By heeding Cayce's advice, the man started viewing his paralysis as a mentor instead of a misfortune. He formed a unique bond with his spiritual essence, and after 18 months, he walked away from that wheelchair. However, the true miracle went beyond his physical recovery. It lay in his metamorphosis into a person capable of guiding others to discover purpose in their bleakest times. This is what Cayce referred to when he mentioned that souls select their own challenges. We aren't merely sufferers of chance events. Instead, spiritual entities have meticulously designed educational experiences. Now, let's delve into the third method that Cayce provided for establishing a connection with your higher self in times of crisis. He referred to it as the silence treatment, but it's not as you might expect. Rather than avoiding the pain or diverting attention from it, you immerse yourself in utter stillness and invite your soul to unveil the treasure concealed within the difficulty. Cayce noted that engaging in this practice could prompt significant insights in just 21 days. However, there's an even more extraordinary aspect concerning its impact in the spiritual dimension. Cayce found that when many souls face challenges together, they generate what he termed collective spiritual pressure, which enhances the growth of all involved. This explains why challenging periods in history frequently give rise to remarkable spiritual advancements and visionary leaders. Consider the prominent spiritual figures across time. Buddha attained enlightenment by facing suffering head-on. Jesus embraced his calling through trials in the wilderness. Every significant spiritual shift in human history has arisen from times of adversity and turmoil. Cayce explained that this is not just a coincidence, it is a spiritual principle. In a reading that astonished his stenographer, Cayce detailed how elevated souls choose to incarnate during humanity's most difficult times with the purpose of elevating collective awareness. They willingly take on these tough missions because they possess the ability to manage spiritual stress and convert it into light for others. Thus, if you find yourself facing significant challenges at this moment, your soul may be one of these enlightened volunteers. Your difficulties are not indications of spiritual inadequacy. Rather, they are reflections of your spiritual resilience. When Cayce examined the Akashic records of individuals enduring their most challenging moments, he repeatedly observed that these souls had selected their journeys as fast-tracked avenues for growth. However, he uncovered an additional revelation that might astonish you. He realized that every soul experiencing hardship is concurrently being groomed for a particular mission of service. The severity of your challenges is directly related to the significance of the impact you are being readied to achieve. I'd like to present a case that illustrates this concept remarkably well. A woman approached Cayce following the devastating loss of her husband and 2 children in a house fire. Shattered and inconsolable, she found herself doubting everything she once held true regarding God, justice, and purpose. However, when Cayce tapped into her soul's records, he uncovered something remarkable. Her deep sorrow was actually equipping her to serve as a link between the material and spiritual realms. Her sorrow had awakened psychic gifts that would ultimately aid thousands of families in connecting with their departed loved ones. In just 5 years, she evolved into one of the most talented mediums of her time, offering solace and healing to numerous individuals grappling with similar grief. This was the recurring theme Cayce observed time and again. Our deepest wounds can transform into our most significant blessings, but only when we perceive them as spiritual missions rather than divine retributions. Yet, this is where Cayce's insights become even more remarkable. He found that souls not only select personal challenges, but also decide to incarnate in particular historical eras that can offer them the precise spiritual lessons they require. Based on historical documents from the Association for Research and Enlightenment, Cayce disclosed that numerous souls currently on Earth opted to incarnate during this time in human history due to the unique possibilities for spiritual development it presents. The turbulence, uncertainty, and swift transformations we are witnessing are not indicators of a flawed world. Rather, they signify an awakening within human consciousness. Cayce foresaw that times of significant difficulty would eventually lead to phases of substantial spiritual growth. He viewed our present age as humanity's spiritual adolescence, characterized by struggles that pave the way for exceptional spiritual development. Consider this: every challenge you are encountering today might be precisely what your soul agreed upon prior to coming into this life. Not as a form of punishment, but as a chance for growth. Cayce provided a method for identifying the spiritual gifts concealed within your struggles, which he referred to as the gratitude transmutation practice. Rather than simply expressing gratitude for your challenges, you learn to appreciate your soul's insight in selecting experiences that will nurture your highest potential. This transition from a mindset of victimhood to one of learning energizes what Cayce termed the inner teacher. However, there's an even more profound aspect to how this process unfolds. Cayce found that by genuinely accepting your challenges as spiritual lessons, you unlock a form of cosmic assistance that's unavailable to those who see themselves as victims. The universe treats learners distinctly from those who feel victimized. In numerous documented instances, Cayce observed that individuals who transitioned from a mindset of, "Why is this happening to me?" to "What can I learn from this?" began to witness what he termed miraculous synchronicities. The appropriate people, resources, and opportunities would manifest precisely when required. This is not merely a case of wishful thinking. This illustrates the workings of spiritual law. Allow me to share one last example that uncovers the profound truth about souls during their most challenging moments. A prosperous entrepreneur approached Cayce following the loss of his wealth due to the stock market crash. He was confronted with the threat of bankruptcy, public disgrace, and the downfall of all he had achieved. However, As Cayce examined the records of his soul, he discovered something that transformed the situation entirely. The essence of this man had become so intertwined with his material achievements that he was increasingly disconnected from his spiritual essence. The financial downfall was not a form of retribution. Rather, it served as a means of salvation. By removing his outward identity, the turmoil was compelling him to reconnect with his authentic spiritual being. This realization would lead to a level of success far beyond anything he had experienced previously, but in ways that held genuine significance. 5 years later, he had not only restored his wealth, but had also evolved into a philanthropist, aiding thousands in discovering meaning and purpose in their lives. His lowest point had illuminated his true mission. This was what Cayce referred to when he mentioned that souls select their challenges. We do not come to this world for a life of ease. We come to experience meaningful lives, and this meaning frequently arises from struggle. However, the crucial point that Cayce highlighted in each reading is that the struggle itself isn't the focus. Rather, it's the progress made through those struggles that truly matters. The knowledge acquired, the empathy fostered, and the inner strength uncovered are the genuine riches that endure beyond our time on earth. Based on the recorded insights of Cayce, those souls who accept their challenges as spiritual missions cultivate skills and awareness that continue into future lifetimes. These individuals evolve into what he referred to as old souls, wise and compassionate beings who assist others during their own dark times. Therefore, what you are experiencing at this moment transcends this lifetime alone. It pertains to your soul's everlasting quest for elevated consciousness and service. Additionally, here is perhaps the most reassuring insight that Cayce disclosed. No soul is ever entrusted with more than it can manage on a spiritual level. While your human side might perceive the challenges as daunting, they are precisely tuned to match your soul's resilience and potential for development. You are not flawed. You are not facing punishment. Instead, you are being shaped for something extraordinary that lies beyond your current vision, yet your soul is deeply aware of it. The darkness you are encountering is not the end of your journey. It serves as a preparation for you to become a beacon that will lead others through their own moments of despair. This insight was shared by Edgar Cayce regarding souls during their most challenging times. They are not in pain. They are undergoing transformation. They are not victims. They are participants. They aren't facing punishment. They are undergoing preparation. Moreover, they are not isolated in this experience. The whole spiritual realm is backing their path to discovering their true selves. If this message touched your spirit, I encourage you to take an important step. Click the subscribe button and activate the notification bell, as there is a wealth of insights from Edgar Cayce that could reshape your perspective on life's difficulties. Don't forget to share this video with someone who could benefit from this message. Your journey may have brought you here not only for your own healing, but also to serve as a source of hope for others. Additionally, please leave a comment sharing an experience where your most challenging moments led to surprising growth or opportunity. Your narrative could be the very inspiration someone else needs to gather the courage to pursue their own spiritual path. Keep in mind that based on the documented insights of Edgar Cayce, your purpose here is not to lead a mundane, risk-free existence. You are meant to manifest the fullest expression of your soul's extraordinary potential, and this journey may sometimes involve traversing through darkness to truly understand the brilliance of your light. However, there's an additional insight from Cayce's teachings that I must convey. one that will transform your perspective on every challenging experience you encounter. In a series of sessions held in the late 1930s, Cayce unveiled a revelation that astonished even his most loyal supporters. He discovered that souls not only decide on their major life obstacles, but also select the precise moments for these challenges to arise. Based on archives from Virginia Beach, Cayce indicated that our souls collaborate with what he referred to as spiritual advisors while in the between-life state, planning not only what experiences we will have, but also when we will be prepared to face each lesson. Therefore, crises in your life aren't merely the result of unfortunate timing. They are intentionally timed spiritual occurrences aimed at enhancing your growth and reducing unnecessary pain. Reflect on the most significant challenge you encountered recently. Consider how you were shaped by that event compared to your prior self. Can you recognize the ways in which you were being readied for something even more profound? Cayce realized that individuals frequently arrange several pivotal crises during their lives, with each one enhancing the resilience and insight acquired from the earlier trials. It resembles a tailored spiritual syllabus aimed at fostering the growth of your soul. But what adds to the wonder of this concept is even more amazing. Cayce discovered that evolved souls frequently choose to undertake heightened challenges, as they are capable of managing rapid growth and utilizing it to assist others more effectively. In a notable instance from 1940, a teacher approached Cayce after becoming blind due to an accident. She was heartbroken, convinced that her career had come to an end. However, Cayce shared insights that completely changed her outlook. He informed her that her soul had selected this journey to cultivate a spiritual vision that would far surpass mere physical sight. Within a span of 2 years, she emerged as one of the most insightful counselors of her time, guiding countless individuals to identify solutions to problems that had previously seemed insurmountable. Her lack of physical sight had granted her a perspective that enabled her to grasp the spiritual aspects of any circumstance. People from all over the nation would come to spend just 1 hour with her. This illustrates what Cayce intended when he remarked that every conclusion is, in reality, a hidden commencement. What appears as a setback to us often represents growth from the viewpoint of our souls. Now, I would like to reveal the most effective method that Cayce provided for navigating difficult times. He referred to it as the spiritual detective technique. Rather than attempting to evade or resolve your issues right away, you assume the role of a detective, exploring what your soul aims to achieve through this situation. You seek out signals in the timing, the individuals involved, the particular characteristics of the challenge, and the possibilities it presents. Cayce recorded that individuals who faced their challenges in this manner consistently uncovered hidden treasures and prospects that they might have overlooked otherwise. However, there is an even deeper significance in the way this spiritual detective work operates. Cayce discovered that when you begin to seek the spiritual significance in your difficulties, you start to draw in what he referred to as solution synchronicities. The appropriate books show up, the right individuals come into your life, and the right thoughts surface at the perfect times. It seems as though the universe acknowledges your openness to growth by offering all the resources necessary to turn these experiences into wisdom and resilience. As per documented insights from the Association for Research and Enlightenment, Cayce explained that this phenomenon is not merely chance. It reflects the workings of spiritual law. When you connect with your soul's educational journey, the universe begins to offer its assistance. I'd like to share an example that illustrates this concept beautifully. A young mother sought help from Cayce after her husband left her with 3 young children and no financial resources. Facing the possibility of homelessness, she was uncertain about how to cope. However, rather than solely concentrating on her immediate challenges, she employed Cayce's method of spiritual investigation to explore the lessons her soul might be gaining from this situation. She came to understand that she had consistently relied on others for her sense of safety, lacking the opportunity to cultivate her own inner resilience and skills. This challenging situation compelled her to unearth strengths she hadn't realized she had. In just 6 months, she not only secured permanent housing and a steady income, but also initiated a support network for other mothers who had been left behind. An initiative that grew into a national organization aiding thousands of families. Her deepest weakness transformed into her most significant strength, turning her personal struggle into a mission for her life. This was the recurring theme that Cayce observed in the spiritual space. The most difficult times in our lives are not obstacles to our soul's journey. Instead, they represent the most significant segments in the narrative of our soul. Cayce uncovered a profound insight that can offer you immense solace during tough periods. He discovered that no soul ever truly faces challenges in isolation, even if it appears that the world has turned its back. In his various readings, Cayce referred to what he termed the invisible support team that always envelops a soul in times of crisis. This team comprises guides, teachers, and even beloved ones who have departed, all collaborating to deliver strength, inspiration, and direction. The essential aspect is understanding how to identify and engage with this spiritual support network. Cayce provided particular methods for doing this, which I'm eager to share. The first method he referred to as the daily council meeting involves dedicating 5 minutes each morning to silent meditation, during which you invite your spiritual support team to reveal themselves during the day. Following this, you remain attentive to signs, synchronicities, and unexpected insights that point to their guidance. The second method is what Cayce referred to as gratitude broadcasting. Each night before you go to sleep, take a moment to mentally express gratitude to all the seen and unseen helpers who have aided you throughout the day. This practice enhances your bond with spiritual support and draws even more assistance your way. However, the third method is the most effective for obtaining direct guidance in times of crisis, which Cayce termed the emergency prayer protocol. When encountering a seemingly insurmountable situation, rather than requesting specific results, seek clarity on the next appropriate action and the fortitude to pursue it. Cayce noted that this approach to prayer frequently resulted in breakthrough instances where solutions emerged that were previously obscured. Based on the archived findings from his readings, Cayce elaborated that souls in distress have access to elevated levels of guidance that are not typically accessible. It appears that the spiritual realm establishes unique communication pathways when we are in dire need. This suggests that during your toughest times, you may be more closely attuned to divine insight and assistance. The essential aspect lies in understanding how to identify and accept it. Allow me to recount one last tale that encapsulates the profound reality of what unfolds for souls during their most challenging moments. A man approached Cayce following a devastating betrayal by his dearest friend, which led to his total collapse. He found himself in financial ruin, emotionally broken, and doubting every principle he held about trust and the nature of humanity. However, when Cayce delved into the records of his soul, he discovered something remarkable. This act of betrayal was, in fact, shielding the man from an even more catastrophic loss that would have transpired had his business continued on its initial trajectory. Furthermore, The ordeal was equipping him to serve as a protector and champion for others who might encounter similar betrayals. His personal wounds would become his credentials for guiding others. A decade later, he evolved into one of the most esteemed attorneys in business ethics nationwide, aiding hundreds in recovering from deception and betrayal, while establishing a novel framework for business rooted in integrity and collaborative support. His most challenging moments had unveiled his true purpose and spared him from a course that would have led to spiritual void, even in the presence of material achievement. This is the insight that Edgar Cayce had regarding the spiritual dimension, which many overlook. Souls are not merely seeking happiness in this life. Their goal is to grow into wise, compassionate, and service-oriented beings that aid in healing the world. Occasionally, this growth demands experiences that test our desires, aiming to uncover what we genuinely need to become. Your most challenging moments are not a form of punishment. This is a process of getting ready for a level of contribution and service that might currently feel beyond your imagination, yet your soul has always recognized it as your true calling. When you grasp this reality, when it resonates within you profoundly, everything transforms. The discomfort may not vanish right away, but it becomes meaningful. The challenges may persist, yet they acquire a sense of purpose. You cease to remain a victim of your situation and transition into a learner of your soul's insights. You cease to wonder why you are experiencing this and begin to inquire about what you are meant to contribute to the world. According to the recorded insights of Edgar Cayce, this transformation is when miracles start to occur. These are not merely healing miracles, but transformative ones. It's not only a change in your situations, but also a profound change in your very essence. This is the revelation that the sleeping prophet shared about souls in their most challenging times. They are being readied for their most significant contributions. They are being shaped into vessels of healing and hope for those who will follow similar journeys. Additionally, they are being reminded that they are not merely humans experiencing spirituality, but spiritual entities undergoing a human existence to serve a purpose that transcends their individual selves.